Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today I get to do one of my favorite types of videos that I do here on this channel, and that is an anticipated releases list. For today, we are going to focus on books that are going to be published in the second quarter of 2026, so April, May, and June, and I have to say I am quite pleased with the variety of books that I have on this list. I hope that you guys can find something that you're interested in. I have a lot of different genres, including fantasy, sci-fi, horror, romance. I also have some genre blends mixed in. I have some series continuations, as well as some standalones for you guys, and some debut novels thrown in there as well. So hopefully there's a little bit of something for everybody. Due to the variety that I do have within the genres, I couldn't separate these into genres for the timestamps, and so instead I'm just going to do timestamps for the month that the books are published. I also will have a separate timestamp for series continuations, because those I don't plan on talking about in depth because they are, continuations of a series. But anyway, enough of me yammering on. Let's get to the books. We're going to start with the series continuations. All of these series continuations are going to be published in the month of May. I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened to be how they lie. The first one is The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty, who wrote The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, and A Tapestry of Fate is the second book in that series. I am really excited to get back to Amina. I want to know, is this going to be a prequel to the last story, or are we continuing on with her adventures? I haven't even read the synopsis to this because I enjoyed the first story so much that I knew I was going to pick it up. So this is one that has been highly anticipated for me. I've been waiting for it since I read Amina, and I'm excited to get back to it. Next on the list is Platform Decay. This one actually came as a surprise to me because when I read the last book of the Murderbot series, was it System Collapse? Was that the last one? I know the last one published I have read, and I thought that the ending of that book was the ending. I thought that it kind of wrapped up things well. I didn't realize that we were going to continue on with these characters, and I'm not mad about it. So to find out that Platform Decay was going to come out, I can't remember. I think I went and I purchased my last book that I needed to complete my collection of the Murderbot Diaries at a local Barnes & Noble, and the clerk there was like, yeah, are you excited about the new book coming out? And I was completely clueless. And so that was very exciting. I'm glad that we will be continuing on in this world that Martha Wells has created with this really amazing character. And then lastly on my series continuations list, this is a little cheaty because it's really a world or universe continuation. That's Radiant Star by Ann Leckie, and this book is a continuation of the Empire of the Ratch world or universe that has been created. I recently have read Ancillary Justice and enjoyed it. We have podcast episodes if you guys are interested in getting into that world and you're wanting someone to buddy read it with. You are welcome to join us over at Not Reading for Content to read that. And I've only read one book, but I already want to know what this universe has in store for us. Radiant Star is, I believe, a standalone, or it might be part of another series, but I haven't read much into it because I don't necessarily want to spoil myself for any of the original series that I'm reading. I am going to try and read that trilogy first, but I am excited to see this, and it's on my radar for the future. Let's move in to the April releases that I have for you guys. I have 5 books in April that are going to be released, and the first 3 that I will mention are sci-fi books. The first one is called The Subtle Art of Folding Space, and this is a sci-fi debut by this author. And I'm not exactly sure what this book is about because the synopsis isn't really clear. I know that we have what seems like multiple universes. I think the main character, Ellie, is in a different universe than we are in. We also have some family trauma, family issues going on as well. She's at odds with her sister, who keeps claiming that she is not Chinese enough. I think there's also something going on with her mother, who is currently comatose. I think there was some issues between her and her mother as well. And then now we have her cousin coming in, who has found something in regards to the machine keeping her mother alive, impacting the rest of the universe in a negative way. Because you have some quantum physics going on in the story. I don't know how deep we're going to go into that. So that's kind of a jarble of a whole bunch of things. My assumption is that this is going to be a story surrounding someone having to choose between their family and keeping others safe, because it sounds like that's going to be the ultimate decision, is do we take the part that is keeping her mother alive and fix it, which could potentially kill her mother, but save the rest of the universe. I don't know if that's where we're headed, but that's kind of how I feel the story is going to go. Typically, I do like a multiverse story. I like how authors have to piece together what that would mean. Are there the same people in all of these universes and we have doubles, or are they completely different places? And how different do they look? Are there varying differences? So like, do we have some universes that are really close together and other universes that are vastly different? So I'm curious to find out where the author takes that story and if that is the focus, because it really sounds more like we're going to focus in on this one family when there's such a bigger picture at play. So we'll see how this one goes. Next, we have Ode to the Half-Broken, which is a book featuring a robot. And I just couldn't resist. This robot is somehow responsible for nearly ending the world, and he has since kind of hidden himself away from the world, but nefarious forces are at play trying to bring back the events that led to the near ending of the world, and he has to get himself involved somehow, and I don't think he really wants to. He also is traveling with like a ragtag group of individuals. I think he has a human mechanic and a cyborg dog, if I remember correctly, which I'm really excited about. It sounds like another book that is going to focus on what it means to be human, and what it means to have kind of a found family in a world where you really wanted to be alone. Hopefully the robot is learning to love having people around versus hiding themselves away and maybe having to face a little bit of their past, which I think just sounds lovely. So I'm really excited about this one. I haven't heard a ton of people talk about it so far, but it comes out in April. So hopefully the buzz around it will get bigger and bigger with time, because I think this one sounds like it could be one of my favorites. It reminds me in tone of the Psalm for the Wild Built, like those types of stories. Also maybe a little bit of the components of The Last Gifts of the Universe, which is my favorite book last year. So I'm hoping this one's just gonna hit it out of the park. Next, we have a book that I am so stinking excited about. And I have heard literally no one talk about it. I found it on a whim, like late night scrolling Goodreads. This is called The Infinite Sadness of Small Appliances. And my friends, if you ever watched The Brave Little Toaster when you were little, you need to read this book. And I haven't even read it yet, but it sounds so stinking cute. We have a futuristic world where all of the small appliances in the world are sentient. And it just so happens that I think it is a Roomba, if I remember correctly, and this Roomba, whose name is Scout, enjoys listening to their elderly owner read stories to their dying wife. So there is some grief components in this story, and I guess after the wife does pass, the old man is somebody, an entity at large, which they call the grid, is trying to force the old man out of his home, and to prevent him from living out his days in the home that he's lived in forever. And this little Roomba decides to take it upon herself and save this man's life, which I just think sounds lovely, and it does definitely give me Brave Little Toaster vibes. I am all here for sentient objects. I think that it's fascinating to see what an author does with characters who are not typically alive, who definitely have a function like a Roomba. How are they going to see the world around them? I just love it. I love having to tinker with a character's personality, and purpose. I think it's going to be a fantastic time. I can't wait to get to this one. Next, we have a debut novel and a fantasy novel with The Witch Queen Rising. This is set in New Orleans. We have a witchy coven that I guess is at war. There are two covens, and I think there's probably more than that, but those are the two like ruling ones. Our main character, whose name is Seraphine, has been ostracized from her coven because of the type of power that she has. She has the ability to steal magic from others, and even though these witches are super powerful, can bend reality, they are still intimidated by this power that she has. They call her a tick witch. And so she has lived away from the coven for a while, and her mother, who is the leader of the coven, ends up being killed or she dies in a mysterious way. And the power that the coven holds is transferred to Seraphine. So she ends up having to come back to the coven, figure out what happened to her mother, but also help in figuring out what is happening within the coven itself. There seems to be some type of a curse at play. I love the setting of New Orleans. I think that this is going to be very vibey, very atmospheric, kind of haunting, and I'm here for it. And on the other side of things, I do have a fantasy romance mystery by Meg Schaefer, who's an author I've been wanting to try for a really long time, and this book sounds like a me book. It is called The Book Witch. And you have a main character who has the ability to literally hop into any book that she reads. I love that trope. I enjoy biblio books, biblio stories. I think that it's a lot of fun to see what the author can do with it. There are some rules surrounding her power, and they're very strict about these rules. You're not supposed to eat or drink or sleep within a bookish world, because you can then become part of the story, and I imagine you can get stuck in a book. And you're also not allowed to fall in love with any of the fictional characters. And so our main character is supposed to stay away from a detective that she loves reading. And so her witchy coven has told her, like, you're not allowed to go inside that book. You're not allowed to meet that person because of the fact that you're so obsessed with their stories. But something happens, some type of mystery happens, and she has to employ him to help her solve a mystery, which I think it's going to be so cute. I am excited. I know that typically fantasy romance is not my vibe, but the fact that we have a mystery involved, I love the component of her having this favorite character that she loves to read about, and she has to interact with him because of this mystery that has come into her life. And I'm sure, you know, maybe there was another choice that she could have picked, but she decides to go with the one that is potentially harmful as far as her losing her magic and her being kicked out of her coven. So I think it's going to be a blast. It sounds very cozy. I think it's going to be fun. Now on to my May releases, and May is coming in clutch. We have 9 books this month, and I am going to start with sci-fi once again. This is another sci-fi debut, and it's called Absence. It's kind of hard to find because there are so many other books that have that word in the title, so make sure if you're interested in the premise that you take a picture or write down the author's name. It's Andrew Dana Hudson, I believe. So this is featuring 2 rookie agents from a human absence delegation or some type of government entity that has been put into place because there are some cataclysmic events that are happening where people just disappear. They poof in the air, no longer there, no one knows what's happening, and it's happening to a lot of people around the entire world. And so there has been this agency formed that is trying to figure out what's happening to people, and they aren't really having a lot of luck. People think that the end of the world has come and that they're just biding their time. It's thrown cities and governments into chaos because of the amount of people that have gone away, and suddenly a woman in Kansas, a small town in Kansas, has come back from the brink of disappearing, and so they are going to interview this individual. I'm curious as to find out whether or not if this book is really going to focus on how reliant we are on the systems that we currently live in, or if it's going to be more of I guess a talk of what it means to be alive and be remembered and be here, live in the present moment, or a little bit of both. I'm excited about both of those topics. So this is definitely one I did not have on my radar prior to looking at. Whenever I do this video, I always look up new releases for 2026 and just scroll and see if there's anything that sounds interesting. And this was definitely one that I had no idea it was coming out, but it does sound intriguing. And I don't know exactly how, like, where the story is going to go, but I'm interested to find out. Next, we have another debut, and this is a fantasy romance. This is called The Library of Flowers. And this book, we are following a main character who has left their family and their legacy. They live in a family that has some type of magical ability to create scents, like actual perfumes and things that will make, I think they'll make people fall in love or something along those lines. It has something tied to the emotions, which I am intrigued by the fact that fragrance is tied in with the component of having a relationship. And she is the 5th daughter in this family, and typically the 5th daughter will have an ability to summon true love. I don't know what that means. I don't know if she can summon true love for anybody, if she can only do it once. I don't know exactly where the story is going to go, but I do know that in the early stages of her gaining her magic fails. And so she leaves her family, sets up shop, away, and is perfectly fine with her life until she inherits. I don't know how she inherits, but she ends up inheriting some of her family's story, like history books and ledgers and things, and learns some secrets about her family's past that she didn't quite know, and kind of delves into what it means to be a daughter within this family. I don't know where the romance component comes in. I don't know if she finds true love or if she finds true love for somebody else. So that's intriguing. I wonder how much romance the story is going to have in it. I think that this is going to be a discussion surrounding generational trauma, because it does sound like this is not necessarily something that everyone in her family wants to do. I could be wrong, but that's kind of the vibe that I got with the synopsis. And once again, I'm curious about the fragrance piece of it. I am currently reading The Works of Vermin, which is a completely different vibe. It's fantasy horror, but one of the things within that is people create these scents to send off hormones, essentially, or pheromones, I should say, that trigger people in certain ways. So whether or not they make people think that you're dangerous and they want to stay away from you, or that you're attractive and they want to befriend you. And I find that a really interesting thing to study. So I'm hoping that this book has a lot of that within it. But I'm also interested in just the daughters of this family and how they've been used, because it definitely feels as though the women that they have 5 children specifically because the 5th one is going to have this specific ability. So what happens to all of the women between? Are they is there animosity? Is there like a hierarchy within their family system? All of those things I want to find out. Next, we have a horror story, and this is the first horror that I have been really, really excited about for a while. And I actually have a few on this list. This isn't the only one, but this is called She Waits Where Shadows Gather. This story, you are following a couple. You have Avery and Carlos, and Carlos is someone who has always prided himself on being able to poke holes in paranormal hoaxes. And he ends up traveling back with Avery to his ancestral home in the Philippines, and there are some things that are wrong with the house that they travel to. One, the housekeeper won't stay in the house alone. She won't go in alone. She won't stay there in the evenings. And the house just seems a little eerie. Well, something happens to Carlos. He ends up being in he's alive and his brain is working, but he is completely paralyzed, and he ends up somehow being in the house. Avery's taking care of him, and the house starts talking to him and no one else can hear it. Avery also has some kind of spooky things going on while she's in the house. It talks about the fact that you have, the header of the synopsis says that parents should leave you stories, not spirits. And so I think there's going to be some information regarding his family's history that he's going to find out within this story. I love the component of a sentient house. I think that it's so creepy. You'll actually see it a couple of times within this story. I mean, sentient objects in general. So we had the small appliances story, which is more cozy. We're also going to see a book later on that's definitely cozy fantasy that has another sentient house. It's just something that I really enjoy seeing authors play around with. So when I saw this in a horror novel, I was like, Yes, sign me up, please. I want to see where we go. Staying in the same vein of kind of creepy eeriness, I'm going to give you guys a fantasy horror new release with The Bone Door. And this book sounds like it could be really weird, which I'm excited for. I hope it's my type of weird. We have a main character whose name is Hop, and I think that that's the bunny that's on the front cover, but who knows. And Hop wakes up, he has no memories, he's in a labyrinth and realizes that he needs to escape. He also is with a girl in the labyrinth, but he doesn't know anything about her, and they have something that is not good chasing them, and they have to figure out how to get out of the labyrinth, how to escape the maze that they've been put in. And that's all I know. It sounds weird. It talks about opening the bone door and what would you do to open the bone door. Why is it called the bone door? Why is there a bunny? Is Hop really a bunny? Why does he not have any memories? Who's the girl and what's the entity chasing them? There's so many things that I have questions about, which I love whenever I read a synopsis, and I'm still kind of left in the dark, but I'm definitely intrigued. And this is definitely one that I would say I'm most excited to get to. Which is weird because it's probably the one I know least about. I think it's going to be a fantastically weird time though, and I'm have my fingers crossed that this will be one that I absolutely love, and I can have another weird book on my list to give recommendations to those of you who I know are looking for that type of a ride. Another fantasy horror for you guys, but this one is by an author that I have read from before, and that is The Girl with a Thousand Faces. This is by Suni Dean, who wrote The Book Eaters, and I know The Book Eaters had some varying reviews, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very unique, and I liked how Suni Dean approached a motherhood story, which I typically don't enjoy. Also, just the book component of it, how different people eat different books, and it gives them different, not abilities, but kind of. If you're interested in that story, I definitely would recommend checking it out because it's weird, but I did really enjoy it. And I think that this one has a premise that I could also really jump in on. And The Book Eaters was also fantasy horror, and so as I've said before, I love that genre blend, so I really want to keep digging into it. With this, we have our main character who has washed up on the shore of Hong Kong, and she has no memory of her past. She doesn't have any clue who she is, and she doesn't have a penny to her name. And so she ends up staying in this city that no one else wants to stay in because it is ghost ridden. It literally has spirits that live there, and she learns to talk to them and ends up getting a job being kind of a spirit, I don't want to say advisor, but she helps people talk with these spirits and maybe help them, you know, move along. And she ends up having one of these spirits end up coming for her, and has something to do with her past, which she doesn't remember, has some type of dark connection to her, and she doesn't know if she wants to remember that past. So I think it has a lot of potential within the premise that's been set up. I love the ability to talk to the dead. I don't know how much of, like, I don't want to say ghost eater, or not ghost eater, ghost whisperer vibes we're going to get, if we're going to see her actually helping people pass on, or if it's really going to be more her being a force against evil. I'm not exactly sure, and I don't know if her past is going to be one where she did something wrong, or if she has to deal with maybe some trauma in her past. Either way, I'm along for the ride. I'm excited to get to another book by Suni Dean. Next, we have a mystery horror, and that is called The Library After Dark. I'm excited for this one. It's about a haunted library, which instantly I was like, yes, sign me up. But we have a girl whose boyfriend gets them tickets to go and tour this library, this haunted library after dark. And he does not realize, so her boyfriend does not realize that she has a sordid past with this library. All I know is that she left a body there the last time that she was there. And so she really doesn't want to go back. She doesn't want that part of her history to be brought up, but she goes for this tour. And the library has these really intricate rooms that are particular to certain genres. And I think that sounds fascinating. They get locked in the library, and the people that are with them, because it's a very small group tour, find out that there is a murderer in their midst. And I don't know if that's her or if someone else is the murderer. I don't know if her secrets are going to come out. It talks about them having to figure out how to traverse this library and these really intricate rooms to try and get out. So I think it's going to be a wild time. I'm excited to get to it. I really hope that it is a mystery horror genre blend, because I know that oftentimes instead of being a mystery horror, it ends up being a thriller, which I'm not super stoked about. But with the components surrounding the murder, I'm hoping that it will lean more mystery but have those spooky, eerie horror atmosphere components in the story. We shall see. Next, we have a fantasy mystery with Mort Dant's Peril, and this is a murder mystery fantasy, which I have loved in the past with The Tainted Cup and with The City of Stairs. I enjoy a fantasy mystery genre blend, and so I'm excited to get into. Also, I think this is by R.J. Barker. I mean, I'll have a picture up so you guys can actually see who the author is. I'm pretty sure that's the name though. And I've wanted to read something by them for a while because I see their books everywhere. So I'm hoping that this one will work for me. Also, this book, in the synopsis, it says it is for fans of Witness for the Dead. And we all know I love The Witness for the Dead. So I'm excited about that. The main character in this, his name is Ivory, I think. Something along those lines. And he has the ability to speak with the dead. Specifically, he gets their last word or something. That's the ability that his cast of clerics, I think he's called a cleric, have, and that's the Mort Dant. That's their title. They are not liked by society, which I think is going to be an interesting component of this. So he has kind of a dismal existence. Even his peers don't like him though. So even though, you know, all of them should kind of stick together, if society in general doesn't like them, they really don't like him. And something happens with his apprentice. His apprentice is murdered and he is the #1 suspect. And so he has to figure out why, like somebody framed him, and figure out who killed his apprentice. The only thing I do worry about this is I don't think I've read very many mysteries, and I know that this is a trope that happens in mystery a lot. I don't think I've read very many mysteries where someone is accused of a murder and they have to solve the murder in order to get themselves out of it. I think I've read a couple. I don't know that it's something I typically enjoy, but I don't think it's something I typically hate either. It's just something I noticed that is a trope that definitely happens in a lot of mysteries. And so I'm interested to know how I'm going to feel about that specific trope. I do love the component that he can speak to the dead. And if he can speak to the dead, why does him talking to his apprentice not solve the murder to begin with? Or is there like a scenario where he does talk to the apprentice, but then he's the only one that could get the apprentice's last word and no one else can talk to the apprentice, which means that he's the person who's saying that it's not him? I don't know. I don't know exactly how that works. I hope that magic system does get described within the story. I'm really, really excited to get to another fantasy mystery, and I hope that I love it. Next, we have a mystery, and I am hoping that I can read this story without reading the source material, because this does have some characters from Jane Austen's stories, which I haven't read. It's called A Very Vexing Murder, Harriet Smith Investigates. And what got me is it's a witty debut whodunit that reimagines Harriet Smith, which is the gullible sidekick of Jane Austen's Emma, as a Spitfire con woman. And that's what got me. I was like, okay, I mean, I love a Spitfire woman to begin with, and the fact that she's a con woman kind of reminded me a little bit of Mask of Mirrors with Ren being a con woman. I've liked that in the past, which I know that that's not a mystery, but it also, I just think that it has a lot of components in it that I think are going to be really cute. It says, no longer Emma's naive companion, Harriet Smith is a feisty conwoman turned detective tasked with breaking off Frank Churchill's engagement and uncovering his aunt's would-be murder. The shrewd Miss Churchill suspects Frank's unsuitable fiancé is out to kill her, while Harriet suspects little more than a society scandal. But what begins as a routine investigation among Highbury's elite quickly spirals into a web of deception, deadly secrets, and a game of survival. So it sounds like she gets into a little bit of deep water and has to figure out how to get herself out. It says, with a cast of unforgettable characters, including a charming scoundrel, a lovesick farmer, a ghoulish butler, and a ruthless heiress determined to hide her skeletons at any cost. It's a brilliantly reimagined mystery featuring the characters from Jane Austen's Emma. I haven't read Emma, but I do just think that this sounds really cute and kind of cozy, not cozy mystery cozy, but it's cozy in the sense that it's historical. I think that it's going to have some characters that I can absolutely love. So this one's on my list that I need to get to this year. Leaning into a cozy mystery, I do have a cozy for you guys, and it's called The Black Cat Detectives. And I can't wait for this book. I recently have read the 3 Bags Full and Big Bad Wool series. It's the Sheep Detectives series, and I have absolutely loved following a detective that's not human. I think that it's so fun. I love the play that the author has with how a sheep in that series would imagine a murder happening, how certain characteristics that humans have that are just weird to sheep. And I think these black cats within this detective story are also going to have that same feature. At least I hope that they do. It does seem that these black cats are magical in some way. I don't exactly know how the magic is going to come at play. We know the kittens, I think there are 3 of them, were taken in by Mila, and Mila is kind of on hard times. She ends up having something happen where she is accused of murder, and the kittens have to solve the murder in order for Mila not to be taken away from them and for their cozy home to be broken up, because she's kind of saved them from a really dire situation. And I just think it sounds really sweet, and I love cats, so I'm here for it. Moving into the June releases that I have for you guys, we're going to start with a few fantasy novels. The first one is by M.R. Carey, who I have enjoyed in the past. I have read The Girl with All the Gifts. I've also really enjoyed the Infinity Gate Pandemonium series with Outlaw Planet and Infinity Gate. I have really just dived into that world in particular, and so when M.R. Carey popped up on the new releases list, I was like, I gotta check it out. This is called The Tinderbox, and it features a soldier and a witch. I believe both of them really didn't want to have anything to do with one another, but one day a demon falls out of the sky and has an artifact on him, a tinderbox, and this artifact allows anyone who holds it to gain access to fulfill any wish that they would like. I don't know if there was multiple wishes or just one. The soldier is the one who ends up finding the artifact, and somehow it entwines the witch and the soldier's life. So I don't know, there's a lot of places that we could go from there. Why was it in a demon's pocket? And why did the demon fall from the sky? I don't know as far as the soldier goes, if we're going to go into him wishing for changes to his past, because I do think that when I read the synopsis, it had something to do with trauma as well. And the witch is someone who has, I think, been secluded from society as well. So maybe there'll be some kindred spirits potentially. I haven't read a lot into it because I kind of want to be surprised, and a lot of M.R. Carey's other works I have just gone in blind, and so I kind of want to do the same with this one. Next, we have a fantasy sci-fi mystery and Friends. Adrian Tchaikovsky is an author I continually come back to, and I don't think I've, knock on wood, I don't think I've had a bad experience with his writing. And this one, it just tickles my fancy. It's called The Green City Wars, and we are following a raccoon detective. So the whole purpose or point of the story is you are following the animals that live within the city underneath all of the feet of the humans that live within the city as well. And this raccoon has made his living by being a PI, and you can hire him. The synopsis, let me read you the first little paragraph, because I think it made me chuckle, because it definitely sounds like something a raccoon would say to you. It says, "Meet Scotch, raccoon PI, yours for a few buttons, as long as the job isn't too illegal," whatever that means. So I think it sounds kind of goofy, and he is solving the disappearance of a mouse that seems to have something that everyone else wants. And so he has to figure out what happened to the mouse and also why everyone is so interested in the items that this mouse has. I think it sounds cute. And once again, like I said, with the black cat detectives, I really love following an animal detective. I just think it allows the author to be really creative with it. And it sounds like this one has a kind of goofy nature to it. I have also really enjoyed Adrian Tchaikovsky's ability to make something that's not human seem human, but in their own ways. With the Children of Time series, we follow spiders that are sentient beings, and you get to live with them in their civilization. With Shroud, which is a horror novel that I read from Adrian Tchaikovsky, you get to follow an alien perspective. There's a lot of, I think, even with like, what was the other one? Alien Clay that I read had a component in it where you're following something that's not necessarily human, and I like how Adrian Tchaikovsky handles that component. And so I'm excited to see it within a raccoon element, because I think that they're, you know, little trash pandas and I enjoy them in real life. So seeing them on page, I think is going to be really fun. Kind of sticking with the same vibe of like fun and lighthearted, I have a cozy fantasy for you guys called The Reimagining of Thornwood House. And this one follows two main characters. You have a woman and her young apprentice, and she is a witch. She's a land witch, and so it says she's dealt with a lot of natural disasters. I'm curious to find out what other type of witches there are in the story because of that. But both of them end up going and they get the opportunity to become a caregiver of this house, which is sentient. So as I told you guys, there is a theme. I do really like sentient houses, and this one in particular is really grumpy, doesn't want to let anyone in, and so I think they have to try and convince the house to allow them to live within its quarters and help take care of it. I just think it sounds lovely. I also like the component of the main character having a younger apprentice and having to kind of bring them up in that. I'm curious about the magic systems as far as her being a land witch and why she's chosen to kind of leave that life behind and become a caregiver for this sentient house. I am excited. It's a house that has legs, and so it moves around. I guess it has an address, but it doesn't want to be at its address, and so it keeps moving, which I think is kind of funny. So it's also by, I think, a best-selling author. So I'm excited to get to a cozy fantasy book. Sometimes they work for me, sometimes they don't. I think this one has a lot of components in its favor, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I have one more cozy book for you guys, and that is a romance story by an author that I have really loved in the past, and that is Ashley Poston. Is coming out with a new book called Someday Garden. I really enjoyed The Dead Romantics and A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, and so I can confidently say that I am not scared to go into a romance by this author because I have read her other works and have enjoyed them, and I think this one just sounds really sweet. We have a character who I think is on a summer job, and she becomes the caretaker for the gardens at this really old establishment that has, I think, a whole bunch of characters who work in this house that are very quirky, so you get to learn that cast of characters. But she learns as she's taking care of the gardens that there is a random door that keeps popping up in lots of different places throughout the house, and this door leads to a cantankerous garden that is not as easily tamed as some of the other grounds. There's also a cranky man who is trapped inside this secret garden, and I'm assuming that's where the love story ensues. But it also says that she just falls in love with the house that she's working at. She loves her job. I love botany within a story. I think that it's going to be fun to see if that plays, because there's some magical realism within this, and so I don't know if we're only going to see that within the secret garden, that those plants are slightly sentient. I don't want to call them sentient because it doesn't say that in the synopsis, but it does say that they're a little cantankerous and hard to tame. And we have this random man who is trapped. So I am intrigued, to say the least. I love a story that has some quirky characters that we can get to know. A caretaker who has a house that is a little strange at times, and I think that it's just going to be heartwarming and fun to get to. Moving away from the kind of cozy, fun vibes, I do have two horror novels to kind of round out the list for you guys, And the first one is an author I have read from before. CJ Lead is coming out with a new book called Headlights. And all I know is you have a main character who is a detective who doesn't have memories of something that happened to him in his past, and he doesn't really want to relive them. And there are people that are having this same thing happen to them. And all I know is that those people are waking up on the side of the highway completely naked, covered in the skin of their victims. And that's all I read. I know that CJ Lead has written Mayfly in the past, and that's the only book that I've read by this author. I know they also wrote American something. I can't remember the title of it. I didn't read that book because I heard that it had animal death in it, so I didn't know that I wanted to give it a try. But I am interested in reading the author again, because Mayfly was a wild time. It was super unhinged. Would not recommend for anybody who doesn't or is not okay with like body horror and just, I guess, lunacy is what I'll call it. Because I had a really fun time with it, but it was wild. So I am excited to get to the author again, and just the premise alone sounds like this one is going to be just as unhinged as the Mayfly. So we'll see if I end up enjoying this one as much as I did the first. And the last book on this list is a fantasy horror called The Children by Melissa Albert. And I am so excited for this book. I think it's going to be excellent. It's been on my list for a really long time as soon as I found out that it was coming out, because it has a premise in it that I really enjoy. And that is the fact that one of the characters, or one of the people within the story, is an author. And I had that in the You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce, is a fantasy horror book where the author dies and the people within that story end up having to do certain things that were in like her last will and testament. And I think that's what happens within this story as well, because we have the author who is the mother of a whole bunch of children. That's why it's called The Children. And she has written her children into the stories. And so the premise, or the synopsis of this book, talks about how these children have two lives. They have the lives that they have in real life, and then the lives that they had on the pages that their mother created. And they don't align. They have some dark things in their past. There is some dark and like seedy things going on between, I think it's a brother and sister. I don't know if they have more siblings, but those were the two that were featured within the synopsis. And I don't know if like did the brother kill the mother? I don't know. It didn't give me enough information to find that out, but there was just some like really eerie things going on with the brother and the sister that they have to kind of figure out after their mom passes. I know that the brother ends up putting out a story to add to the stories that are already published after their mother's death, and it's called The Mother, which is, I think, just kind of creepy. I don't know why. But let me just read to you the last paragraph of the synopsis, which has nothing to do with the storyline. I don't want to give you too much away of the storyline, but the last paragraph doesn't give anything away. It just, I think, sets a really eerie tone that I just find delectable. It says, "Wise to the mythic weight childhood memories gather over time. The children whispers to you from the hallway outside your bedroom. Lights flickering as you turn the pages of a book that didn't seem so scary moments ago. It's a story for anyone who's ever revisited an old favorite and found it cast in a darker light. The line separating magic and memory blurring as the gap widens between the authors we imagined and the people they turned out to be." I love it. I think it sounds so great. I'm trying really hard not to hype it up in my brain, but I think it's going to be fantastic. I love the eerie vibes. I love that we have this story that was published by their mother that is, you know, maybe sweet in nature, or at least happy in nature, and their actual lives were anything but. Yes, give it to me now. And that's it. those are the 20 anticipated releases and then 3 series continuations that I have for the second quarter of 2026 that I am really excited to get to. I'm sure that I missed some of these, so if you guys have any that you would like to shout out in the comments down below, I would love to add to my TBR to go in and look for more anticipated releases, because I am really excited about this list. I had to whittle this down quite a bit to get to only the books that I've talked about today, because I do think that April, May, and June, for whatever reason, have a lot of really amazing titles coming out, and I couldn't be more excited. If you aren't feeling chatty but you still want to let me know that you're here, leave me a moon emoji for the children in the comments down below so I know that you guys are with me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!